I'm living in that 21st century, doing something mean to it, do it better than anybody you ever seen.
I've never
from the Hague.
never had a 3D
Nice ring to it. I guess every
but I don't think I want to like launch right into my first like video editing with this with like 3D things. Okay. I want to. But we can take some like 3D B-roll so I can fuck around with it. It'd be fun.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You could like hang from your legs or something.
Word, yeah.
These things could be cool.
Definitely.
So, Kadallah, hello.
Hey.
What's up?
How's it going?
You are from Washington, D.C., yes?
Yeah, outside of the D.C.
Cool. This is, I think, maybe I need some advice from you, a better question to start asking people during these interviews. But I always ask people, like, what was it like growing up in Washington, D.C.?
Right. You think that's not a good intro?
No, I mean, it's a little bit too broad, too general.
Right.
I've been writing also like trivia questions for different people to ask them. I've done that a few times. I didn't this time, so we'll have to more rely on actually having a conversation.
Okay.
The force of your personality.
Right, right.
But what was it like growing up in Washington, D.C.?
So
By the way, I've never been there, but you can tell me where you're from.
Yeah.
Maybe some people know.
Okay. So when I was a kid, I didn't grow up in the city itself. I lived in like the suburbs around DC. So for a while I was living in Montgomery County when I was in kindergarten or so. Then I was in Fairfax County, which is in Virginia. So Montgomery County is in like Maryland, Fairfax County is in Virginia, and then for high school I moved to Howard County, which is also in Maryland.
All right,
and
right on.
after-
This is like the kind of the greater Washington D.C. area.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So we call it the DMV.
DMV.
Yeah,
Okay.
DC, Maryland, Virginia.
Okay. Right on.
But it's like the greater DC metropolitan
Is
area.
land area? Is DC a big city?
Is what?
Is DC a big city, like land area?
That's a really good question.
Like, could you walk it or not really?
Whoa. I mean, give it some time, maybe, but I don't think it's
possible.
Super walkable. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It also feels kind of spread out. DC is an interesting city in that, like, one, it was designed specifically to quell, like, the ability for protesters to like throw mass insurrections in the city, and also to avoid foreign invaders from coming in and taking over the city.
Oh, there's some like defensive strategy thought out in the city.
Yeah, in the way that the city's laid out. So it's like, I don't drive, but from what I've heard, it's like impossible.
Have you
to navigate.
driven before?
Yeah. I just don't. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Same.
I have.
Same.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's kind of a complicated like layout to the city itself.
Okay.
But it's also interesting because there's no like skyscrapers everywhere. There's a building cap on the height that buildings can be.
I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
Like for like historical reasons.
Yeah.
In Washington D.C., is it historical reasons or some other?
I imagine that it's historical reasons, like
to like kind of preserve like the integrity of the the sightseeing, the views, the rooftops, the architecture.
Because we have so many monuments and stuff, like the ability to see.
What's your favorite one? Washington.
Huh?
Are you gonna go to the Washington Monument?
No. I really like the MLK Memorial.
Oh,
for sure.
cool.
I also really like the Vietnam Memorial. You know what I mean?
Really? No, I don't. Because I've never been to Washington D.C. Obviously, it's like a huge like tourist place for Americans in any case.
Right.
But people go. A lot of times they have good things to say about. I mean, the museums, the monuments.
Yeah.
I guess that's why you go.
Yeah.
You don't go for the food.
Right.
Is there good food there?
I mean, we have our specialties.
Why MLK?
Because it looks super beautiful. It's historic. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's great.
Yes.
And it's also right next to the Vietnam Memorial.
Why the Vietnam Memorial?
It's amazing.
MLK, I get a bit more. Vietnam, a bit less.
Yeah. Well, because with the Vietnam one, I mean, especially like for these guys, they don't know I'm not a super like war activist or anything.
Go war, Vietnam.
Yeah.
It's like a memorial, right? Like like this happened.
Yeah.
Like okay.
But the way that it's constructed is like, it's like no other memorial I've ever seen before. It kind of comes out of nowhere. You don't expect it. Like if you don't know it's there, as you walk into it, you're just like, whoa. Like,
okay.
You're just engulfed in this like really emotionally resonant like space that you had no idea you were walking into, and it changed my perspective on memorials entirely.
The thing I've heard the biggest emotional responses to are the Holocaust Museum. Also in Washington, D.C., right?
I think we might have one, but there's a bunch of Holocaust museums around the world.
Okay.
I'd say, my favorite memorial in the world is the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin.
Okay.
Which is similar. It's not similar to the Vietnam Memorial, like, in the way that it's constructed, but, like,
They must just
in
be
a
really
way-
emotionally, right? Like really intense.
Yeah, but it's because it's also like artistically, the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin is like no other installation I've seen. In that it's like you have these huge concrete slabs that rise out of the ground, and you are slowly sinking into the ground as you walk, and you don't realize at first that you are going downward, and then eventually you're just like these concrete slabs are like way towering over you because you've slid downward.
Yeah.
And the height of the towers have also gotten taller, like as you go inward, so you can like lose yourself inside of this monument.
Wow.
Yeah.
Intense.
Yeah, it's very.
Do you cry like during things like this?
I'm not a huge
Movies
crier.
or
Yeah.
no? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a
Okay.
robot, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I've only cried in like I think 3 movies in my life.
Okay, but you remember them.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know if I'm sure I've cried once or twice, maybe as like a baby.
Worse.
While watching a movie or
Alright,
something,
well,
like I don't remember. Like I don't remember ever crying. I've definitely teared up. Like I do get emotional.
Yeah.
What I'll tell people is like if I go through a certain like experience or movie, art, or something like this, I'll say like if I was the kind of guy who cried, I definitely would have cried.
Right.
You know, like I feel on the verge of that. You know.
Yeah.
But
Definitely. These 3 feel like anomalies, and to a certain extent, one of them definitely feels like it wasn't an incredibly emotional experience for me before I cried, so I wasn't sure why it happened.
the Holocaust.
Oh no,
Memorial or
with
Vietnam?
with one of the movies.
Oh, the movies. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then the other 2 make way more sense. So, yeah.
Can you explain?
The first one, the one that didn't make a huge amount of sense to me was Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. I watched that.
So last time we talked, you recommended like 5 movies to me,
Yeah.
and I'd heard of like none
Yeah.
of them. Let's make it number 6.
I mean, it's good, but
Okay.
it's not like I wouldn't use that as my 6th. Yeah. And then the other 2 that make more sense. One was 13, and one was When They See Us, which are both Ava DuVernay movies. So makes sense.
We're gonna have to skip this part of the conversation.
Okay.
This is gonna have nothing to add. Here, what's Ava DuVernay is what director?
Director, yeah.
Okay.
Super great.
Is she like old? I mean, like not making movies anymore, or is she modern?
Yeah, she's contemporary. She's like
Okay.
currently making stuff.
Okay,
When They
okay.
See Us came out like last year.
Okay, dope. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds artistic.
So 13th is about like institutional, like the way that the prison system is designed in the United States, and it's a documentary. Whereas When They See Us is a docu-fiction series, not docu-fiction. It's based on real events, but it is
like
a
historical
recreation.
fiction, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
About a very famous group of boys at the time who were imprisoned for the rape of this woman who.
Oh, I think I've
didn't
seen that
actually
before.
witness.
I think I've seen that. Like most of it takes place in like a house, like where cops were shooting? This is a different movie.
I think it might have been a
movie
different
we're thinking about. Okay, because I think they ended up dead, not in prison. So.
Word.
All right. So on that note, staying on focus,
Yeah.
expat experience.
Yeah, okay.
So you live in Taiwan now?
Yes.
And you lived in China before?
Yep.
Is that right? How did you get from Washington D.C. to Asia?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it goes back a little bit further in terms of like my grandparents are from Jamaica.
Okay.
And they moved to Liberia right before my dad was born. And
Okay.
then my dad moved from Liberia to the U.S. Maybe when he was in college, right?
Okay. Okay.
So it feels like very much like a part of.
Do you have
me.
any like family or in Jamaica or not really?
I mean, we have like distant relatives, but none of my
you don't like
immediate
go
family.
like visit grandma there.
No. My grandma, I don't think had been back between the time that she left for Liberia and when she passed away.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, definite goal of mine is to go visit Jamaica.
Another place I hear good things about.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it just feels like it's a part of my DNA to just like move. And China's pretty far from the U.S.
China's really far from the U.S. Yeah, like in a lot of ways, like
Yeah.
distance, but also culture.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be like the most distant major culture from the U.S. I feel like Europe has to be a bit closer. African cultures have to be a bit closer.
Yeah.
Even some Asian countries like Taiwan, Japan
Right.
seem a little bit closer.
Definitely.
China seems very foreign.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what attracted me to it in a sense. So the reason why I went to China originally was for school. I went to NYU Shanghai as a part of their like second graduating class.
Okay.
So when I was applying for school, I knew that I wanted to study away from the U.S. for as long as possible. So when I got into the program, it was just like, it made sense. You know?
What were you studying in university?
I studied interactive media arts.
Okay.
So a mixture between like understanding technology, and then like media theory, and then the arts, and like how we can use technology for art.
That seems like a very specific degree. It almost seems like a master's degree or something.
Word. It's interesting. Well, and that makes sense because our program is actually based off of a master's program.
That does make sense.
Yeah. But it's funny because I think I've always thought of it as super broad because it's like you have all of these different avenues with technology, but I guess that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so Shanghai.
Yeah, word.
So you were there studying Chinese, or you're studying media essentially there? You're studying your major, like taking major classes in Shanghai.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then I had to take Chinese as a part of my degree.
Okay.
But very glad that I did. You know. Yeah.
Have you kind of kept up studying it till now a bit?
Not.
You obviously live in Taiwan, so you can use it.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I haven't been studying it formally since I graduated, but the current plan is to go back to school hopefully this year to keep studying Chinese.
Awesome.
But I think for me, the way that I learn best involves like being on the street, talking to people, you know, having conversations.
Yeah.
That's where, like, that's why I want to learn. is
Definitely.
To have conversations.
Do you speak other languages or just like English and some Chinese?
English and some Chinese.
Are you American?
I am.
I see.
Yeah.
I wish I had more qualification to talk about because I have been learning Chinese for like 6 years, I guess now. But it's number one, it's not good enough, and number two, there are people who speak like 5 languages, so I kind of feel like I have no place to talk about learning languages. You know, like it's not really. But in my experience, I would say for me personally, if I was going to learn another language, I would focus pretty much on going to bars. I would go to the country, go to bars and just talk to people.
Yeah.
You know, just some place where you can like naturally have fun in the language for like a few hours a night. That's where I learned like most of my Chinese was in bars in China.
Yeah.
Like that's how it got okay.
I also think your language, like, you lose your inhibitions while you're drinking. So it's a lot easier to practice and like you feel more comfortable.
It's
like,
something a lot of people say is that their language skill for their second language gets better when they drink.
Yeah.
And it probably doesn't actually, but it feels like it. Yeah, you care less about making mistakes.
But I think that confidence definitely
It helps. Yeah. At least to start to practice, right?
Yeah.
Just to kind of get it out there.
Right.
Cool. So how long were you in Shanghai for?
So I moved there in 2014.
Okay.
And then I studied abroad for about a year. And then I came back. So I spent like 3-4 years there. Yeah.
Cool.
In Shanghai.
Cool. What's it like? What was your first impressions of Shanghai? Like when you went there? That was the first place you went in China?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was my first place.
If you remember, your first impressions, like when you got there, what did you think about the place?
I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I think part of it was the fact that, you know, as Americans, when you're out in the U.S., you have a very, like, I would say, if you've never experienced China yourself, we have a kind of negative perception of China.
Yeah, it's our national enemy, like one of our big national enemies. Definitely national competitor at the lightest.
Yeah, exactly. So then you get there and you realize people are just people. You know, they have like, they make it seem like everybody's just sitting all the time, whatever. You get there, Shanghai is an amazing nightlife scene.
Yeah. It's one of the cooler cities in China and certainly the most international.
Yeah, definitely. Which is funny because it feels, I mean, Shanghai has 200,000 foreigners,
and the population's like 10 plus million?
25 million.
20, okay.
Yeah.
So 10 plus.
Right. But like the Shanghai foreigner community feels very tight knit, you know.
Really?
What I mean?
Okay.
Like,
I guess 200,000 in a city that size is not that much, right?
And that's the thing, like, it feels like there's way more because of how close knit and like the fact that everybody's like kind of congregating in the same spaces.
Yeah.
But then you look at like, in actuality, 200,000 for like a city, like if it was only foreigners, it would be not that big of a city.
Yes.
Yeah. But so it's really cool. I mean, even today, like, since coming to Taiwan, you know, I've been out places and I'll meet people who have come from Shanghai, and it's like we work in the same circles. Like,
really,
we know the same people. We hang out with the same people back in Shanghai. So
cool, super cool. Do you ever miss it?
Oh
Shanghai?
yeah, I miss it all the time.
Yeah.
But I also feel like I miss the Shanghai that existed when I was there. Shanghai changes super quickly, and I mean
China generally, or Shanghai more specifically, even than China?
Yeah, I mean China definitely is constantly changing, but Shanghai, I would say even more so. Just the rate of change in Shanghai is crazy.
You mean like the culture, the people?
The culture, the people, in terms of like the turnover rate of
Right.
people,
For
like
foreigners. Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
who are coming in and coming out. But also like the culture of the city itself. Like recently, my favorite club that was still around from when I first arrived. It's the last one of the clubs that I originally frequented when I first got there.
Oh, your clubs are dying out.
Yeah, no, they're dead. They're all gone. Of the original ones that I used to go to, which is like I know.
Although
that
that's
sounds like
very
a small
natural
thing.
for clubs though. The clubs have a life cycle.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of crazy
But
to
it's
think that
personal
there's
for you
no,
also.
But it's also like there's no. How do you maintain a consistent like body of people or like a consistent like culture when there are no institutions at which you can like rally around or that you can congregate?
Right.
You know what I mean?
So as you say, it changes.
Yeah,
It doesn't
it
stay the
changes.
same. It changes.
And it also, I feel like it feels different when it's like an organic change and when it's like politically motivated. You know what I mean?
No.
When clubs and stuff are or like getting closed down in Shanghai, there's always this question of, you know, are the reasons that they're giving for the closing down, are they actual reasons or are they like cover-ups for just being closed for political reasons? Like a lot of the time.
You mean like if they have like legal issues, like people are selling drugs inside or something? What do you mean political?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of times where clubs will close down due to political pressure from the Chinese government. Like, there have been a lot of like.
I mean, a lot of people don't like clubs for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
You totally get like if they're like loud or there's like drunk people like peeing on your house or something. Like you probably don't want the club around.
For sure, and there's definite examples of that. Like there used to be a bar street called Yongkang Lu where. It was like on weekends it would be hard to drive a car through. On like holidays, like you could barely walk through the street. But it was on like it was in a residential neighborhood, so like people would like, dump buckets of water on the people who were in the street.
Oh my gosh, it must be really obnoxious to be one of those people.
So then, after a few years of that happening, they closed down all of the bars and restaurants that were there and moved like 90% of them to this like pit underground called Found 158, and it's actually really fun.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's cool that you have like the liberty to go like party and have fun, enjoy your nightlife, but also like keep that separate from the people who like have jobs and like need to sleep and have babies. You know, like
for sure,
they're more important actually than your nightlife.
But I think that is one thing that's very different from like the number of like LGBTQ clubs in Shanghai that have been closed down for.
Do you mean
like,
specifically LGBTQ clubs closing in Shanghai?
I don't mean specifically. I mean that's a subsect. Like it's an example of a larger.
And probably a good
issue where
example
you'll
of
see
why there would be political motivation.
Exactly. That's why.
China is like even more recently. The CCP at a national level that make a decision, and suddenly that's just how the whole media landscape in the country is after that.
So I think in that sense, like the party might be becoming more like homophobic, but at the same time, I think that the people on the ground are becoming less so. Like you look at recently, or I guess not super recently now, like 2018 or so, there was a huge movement on Weibo where like internet users were protesting some changes that had been made to Weibo's like policy against like removing what's the word? They use like a really shitty word for describing like gay content, basically, where they're like, oh, this is like immoral and like disgusting or something. And they've like changed their laws to like include more censorship of LGBTQ content, and then users like rallied against it, and I think they were able to change the decision ultimately, which is like a huge deal.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
Yeah.
I guess it is one of those things. I mean, like you said, we Americans, we have like kind of our stereotypes about China, and then you get there and you find out like people are just people, and then the people there like understand the same thing is going on. Like they also know that there's like propaganda, and they also like don't necessarily agree with the government, although some of them do, right? Like it's this. But the things that you'll often see in the news is people getting outraged at government decisions, right? And a local person, I mean, as in any country, may tell you, like, I don't agree with that at all. This is a cool example of that difference. Maybe old people in the CCP versus, like, normal people can't kind of shifts the tide of change so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that was a huge part for me arriving there. Like, I've always been a somewhat political person.
Yeah.
But arriving there and seeing like living on the other side or whatever,
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
it so much easier to see ways that we have been brainwashed and the way
Yeah,
that we talk
definitely.
about China being brainwashed.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So that was an incredibly.
Did you ever take language in like high school? Like
Yeah.
Spanish?
I took French.
Okay, right on. So I took Spanish for 3 years, and I didn't really learn any Spanish.
Yeah.
But it did. People have this experience all the time that it like teaches you more about like English, right? Like
Yeah.
you understand like the different like parts of speech a little bit better, how things are constructed better, grammar, and like how things could potentially be different that you never thought about before.
Right.
Where was I going with this thought? Let's move on from this thought.
Okay.
How long were you in Shanghai before you?
Before I came here.
Yeah.
So about 3-4 years.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're more like nostalgic about your Shanghai time, rather than missing it?
That's a really good question.
Mm.
I think it's 50-50 because like on one hand, I definitely do feel a lot of nostalgia for a place that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so many of my friends are still there. So much of my community is still there. If I were to go back today, I feel like it would still feel like home.
Yeah.
It would just feel like slightly different.
Do you ever get nostalgic about like periods of your life that logically you know like are not that good?
Yeah, I mean, even like when I first arrived in Shanghai, I was like an 18-year-old who was coming into a place where I could drink without like having an ID or whatever, and I was like fucked up way more than I needed to be.
Yeah, like it probably wasn't actually a good period of your life, but you have like these warm, like fuzzy feelings attached to it.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes you who you are. You know?
Yeah, for sure. What's it like being a black guy in China compared to like being white?
I couldn't tell you what it's like to be white in China, but I thought it was, so for me, I think another really big reason for why I appreciated being in China when I first arrived was that at the time that I arrived, the Black Lives Matter movement was becoming huge. You know, there was protests happening all the time in the U.S. related to police brutality. And coming to China and feeling like I was just a person felt incredible. You know,
How do you mean?
Like the racism that you experience in China is often like ignorance. You know what I mean? It's people.
Yeah, and a lot of like just curiosity.
Yeah, exactly. It's people that have not seen someone like you before, so they're like asking you questions or like being like, "Oh, you look like Obama," or like,
Yeah. But it's in kind of this innocent way that you can't feel anger towards.
Yeah, it's curiosity. It's harmless, right?
Yeah,
the racism that we have in the U.S. like kills people.
Yeah.
It ruins
Yeah.
lives.
Yes.
Like it's
Yes.
institutional, and whereas there it just feels like a very one-on-one thing. Of course, there were times where I experienced more like hostile or malicious racism.
In China?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you separate that you being black from you being a foreigner as far as that goes, or it's kind of difficult?
When it is malicious, the only times that I've experienced it maliciously were because I was black. Like the only instance that I tend to talk about with this, because it's only one that like really pops out of my mind.
Yeah.
Was one time I was celebrating a birthday with a bunch of my friends. And there were 2 black people, me and another one of my friends.
Okay.
All my other friends got into the club. Me
Okay.
and my friend were asked to not go inside.
For real?
Yeah. It was
Wow.
fucking wild.
You guys were like in the same group?
Yeah.
And you guys were just singled out like no?
Yeah. And I had been there before. you
Wow.
know. Another one of our friends who was with us was Chinese, and he like talked to the bartender or whatever, and it was like very clear that the bartender was being racist.
Oh my god.
But it was cool at the same time because like the way that the community rallied around it.
Right.
Immediately, my entire school like hopped on Facebook, destroyed their reviews. I think they still have like 1 star on Facebook because of
Okay,
it. Yeah.
cool. So it feels like the backlash was kind of worth the shitty moment.
Yeah, it was also a shitty club. Like I didn't need to be inside. We ended up having a much better time going somewhere else.
Cool, interesting. It's cool that you can have that. I mean, I guess if it isn't like extremely like violent or something, you can. You're a positive person, and you can try to have this kind of positive view on the situation.
Right.
What happened? You don't try to get pissed off if there's not a good reason.
Right.
I guess. Do you ever get pissed off?
I
have a hard time imagining you getting like super angry.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get very angry. You know, I don't know. It's just not a part of my coding.
Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah.
So you were in Shanghai for a few years, and you came to Taiwan pretty recently, right?
Yeah.
6 months, less than 6 months ago.
Yeah, I got here in October. Right now it's February.
Math.
Yeah. So
Cool. Few months.
Few months.
Do you see any immediate differences between Taiwan and China, than Shanghai specifically? And so this is important that you're in Taipei / nearby Taipei versus Shanghai.
Yeah.
And Taipei is not Taiwan and Shanghai is not China. They're parts of, right? But what experience have you seen so far? It's different between the two.
So on one hand, there's the immediate like. Shanghai has roughly 25 million people. The entire island of Taiwan has roughly
21.
25. Oh,
less.
Even
Yeah,
less.
yeah.
So whereas like in Shanghai we have services for like there's probably my guess for one of the most frequented websites for foreigners in Shanghai is this site called Smart Shanghai, which is like part directory, part articles, part like
just things to make your life more convenient, easier.
Cool. It's essentially a directory. It makes it a lot easier to navigate the scene of Shanghai.
Just you mean like daily life, like if you need to get something fixed or you need to know like where do they sell this or anything. Okay.
There's so many like articles and stuff on there that help make your life easier. Or if you're trying to get into the nightlife scene, like this is what's happening today, right? I find it a little bit harder in Taipei to find things to do and like communities to become a part of because you have to find it organically. And I was
mostly true. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a way smaller place. I think it just like anytime you have even if it is kind of a similar environment, if you multiply the people by 2, by 5, by 10, you know, things change like dramatically, like at every level, you know. People say people in Taipei or in Taiwan are really friendly. I think that they are way more friendly compared to China, but I guess that's in large part just because it's so much smaller. People in big cities tend to be dicks. People in small places tend to be nice. Like that's kind of the difference between the two. There may be also other more subtle cultural differences, but that's got to explain a lot of it. It's just a smaller place.
I think that's a huge part of it. That's a really good way of wrapping that up.
And it is true the technology in China is insane. It's like really insane. Like you feel like you're going back in time 50 years coming to Taipei.
Or going to America even.
Same.
But yeah, I think that's definitely a big part of the differences here. I don't think you can have a conversation about the differences between Taiwan and China without also talking about like the way that people engage with politics. You know what I mean? I think that's a huge difference for me between being in Taipei and being in like Beijing specifically, or even Taipei and Shanghai. In terms of like people much more openly feel a connection to the political situation. I feel like there's a sense of like outside of I was in school, so obviously people were more political and talked about politics and stuff openly. But as soon as you get out in the city, there's almost like not an apathy towards it, but like people don't talk about stuff that much,
true. It's kind of like on like a personal level, people are kind of apolitical. Like it's not something that comes up, you know. It'd be talking about like, you know, soil sediment. Like I'm aware that people study the earth. I don't want to talk about dirt. Like,
right.
You know.
Like but change the
but it's true. Like if they exactly. What am I going to do about it? Like it's not my. Because what can a Chinese person do to be political? Not much, right? Except just like on a very local level, I guess. You know, if you want to organize a park or a community garden or a dance group, you can do that. Not a whole lot more.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. So in that way too, I think it's cool because Taipei feels a little bit like a mix of Beijing and Shanghai, and then it has that like big city feel and this like political nature to it. Not to say that Beijing's small by any means, like it's a huge city that has like a bustling population too, but I feel like Shanghai feels a bit more, I mean Taipei feels a bit more like Shanghai, and like the day-to-day like going out and you know people and stuff.
All right, dope. Did you travel while you were in China?
I went to roughly 16, 17 different like cities and towns and stuff.
Oh, cool. So traveled, seen quite a bit. Do you have a favorite city? Let's say other than Shanghai. Other than Shanghai,
that's super hard.
There's a lot of good ones, right?
There's so many good. And that's one of the things that I really loved about traveling around China is like it's painted as so like culturally homogenous, but then when you travel around China, you see just how diverse places are. Like and like in every possible way, you know, like geographically you've got like desert areas, you've got like foresty areas, you've got rivery places
For
like,
sure. You
water
do have
sounds.
rivery places.
Yeah. But you also, even like on a language level, like when you're in Chengdu, you have like Mandarin, of course. Then you also have like Sichuanhua. Then you have like Chengduhua. Then you have all of the languages for like the local ethnic populations and stuff.
Yeah, I
So
think
it
there's
just
like
feels
40 some odd languages in China, right? Like indigenous languages.
Yeah, and that would be even the indigenous languages. I feel like would be considered separate from like local dialects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean non-Mandarin languages. They call them dialects, right? Because a dialect, I guess it can either mean like a variation on a language,
Right.
or it can just mean a separate language in the same place.
Right.
And so when people say like, even in Chinese, they'll say like, well, I only speak Chinese, but they speak 3 different dialects.
Right.
They're mutually unintelligible, so I
Right.
consider these different languages.
Right.
You know?
Well, in that way, I would say there's probably many more than 40. Because
So okay.
there's
I'm not really sure how they measure.
yeah.
I think the definitions are loose. Probably does depend
Right.
on how you measure things.
Yeah, but the reason why I would venture to say there's more is
Yeah.
because, from my understanding, pretty much every province has its own provincial dialect. Then sometimes, like with Chengdu, you get down to like you have a citywide dialect.
Yeah.
Then you also add in the fact that there's like so many different like ethnic minority
Yeah,
populations
so that,
and all
well,
of them.
that is the thing. Like Chongqing and Chengdu are neighboring cities that are both enormous and a bit different.
Yeah.
And they also both have kind of local language, the Chongqinghua and Chengduhua.
Yeah.
But so this might like maybe I might not consider them different languages because it's just
Right.
kind of like variations on a theme, you
Right.
know. But certainly different dialects.
Yeah, yeah.
In any case, a lot.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, so for that was one of the reasons why I really like traveling around, was just being able to see all of the like diversity and everything.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's such a hard.
Do you have a least
I really
favorite?
liked, huh?
Do you have a least favorite? A most hated Chinese city?
I wasn't a huge fan of. I stayed in like a really small place.
Okay.
In Henan, near
Henan,
Zhangzhou,
okay.
but not Zhangzhou.
Okay. Okay. A town, right?
Yeah.
Little town. Okay.
Yeah, but I think it was more the conditions that I was there under that I didn't like. But I
see.
don't know. I really, really like Shenzhen, and I
Okay.
really, really like Urumqi. Like
Huh?
Urumqi.
Urumqi, I don't know.
Urumqi.
Oh, Urumqi.
Yeah.
In
Xinjiang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I've never been, but yeah.
Really great. It's super, super diverse. You
Okay.
have like, of course, you have like Han Chinese people, but then you also have like a bunch of like ethnic minorities, like Uyghur people. Then you are on the border of a bunch of countries right there. You've got like Russia, you've got Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
And so it's just super ethnically diverse, and you see all these like really beautiful people, and the food is amazing, and so,
Yeah, it's some of my favorite food.
yeah.
It's something I always kind of regretted. Like, I never was a good friend with any Uyghur people, but I always loved going to the restaurants. Number one, just because the food was great.
Yeah.
But I always felt like, I really think as a culture, they're like really, really like happy. Like I just, like I noticed this kind of with like Lanzhou Lamian places. It's like,
Yes,
they're all
yeah.
run by Uyghurs, and they're all like super, not all of them, but like a lot of them are like super like happy people. Like they
Yeah.
really feel like culturally like different, like I
Yeah.
think like really like genuine and like nice.
Yeah.
I always love that.
And the ramen places are like, whenever you're like, I'm hungry and I want something.
Generally hungry.
Yeah. And
It's the McDonald's of China.
Yes, that's the best way of putting it. And it's always
Kind of
halal.
more. It's kind of more like actually, it's kind of more like the in America the Chinese restaurants of
China.
China. Yeah.
that's a good way of putting it.
Because they're all kind of like locally owned by these families, all like from the same place.
Right. Right.
Um,
Same staple dishes. You got your lamyan, like you
Yeah.
got your orange chicken.
Yeah. Exactly. That's one of the probably one of the big reasons I tried to tell people why I love China so much.
Yeah.
Right? Is this diversity you're talking about?
Yeah.
Like, I love Taiwan a lot. I've lived here 3 years, and I have like very little complaints. But if there was one complaint, it would be the food. I'm not a huge fan of Taiwanese food,
Right.
and I think it's not because it's bad food, but it's just that there's so much really good food that all of its neighbors have. So like Japan has like famously just the best quality of food in the world, maybe France and Italy. Like Korean food is really good, Vietnamese food, Thai food is really good. But for China, it's like if you're in a big city, you have so many options,
Right.
like so many local options. You could legitimately have like 25 totally different styles of food to choose from.
Right. In the same place.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I will give Taiwan food though is I'm vegan.
Okay.
And it's so easy to be vegan here compared to anywhere else that I've lived. Like I'd say even more so than the places that I've lived in the States, in that it's way cheaper. Whereas sometimes you end up like, if you're eating vegan in like LA, you're spending way more money than
I see.
even if you're eating like normally, you know.
That's kind of odd and interesting.
Yeah, it's so
But
paradoxical.
things in the US are pricey.
Yeah.
Very pricey.
For sure.
That's cool. So you also spent some time in Kaohsiung, is that right?
Yeah.
I just went there this week for just 2 days. It was
Okay.
the second time I've ever gone, and it was I guess it's the second biggest city in Taiwan.
Okay.
It was really, there's a lot of really cool places in it. Like it seemed, I mean, there's there's some art center and there's some beachfront, the harbor, different things. The coolest thing definitely the Buddhist temple.
Did you end up going?
Yeah.
Nice.
I've heard from my former roommate that you could spend an entire day there easily. I thought he was maybe just like a slow walker, but I mean you can.
Yeah.
It's a small town.
Yeah, it's like
It's
three
enormous.
parts. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so big.
Yeah.
So you also told me that you'd spent time there, and you told me I should go to the volunteer center to say that I knew you and they would know you. But there was thousands and thousands of people there. There had to be at least 1,000 volunteers. I don't know where the volunteer office is, and I don't know who to go talk to.
Okay.
Are they all? I didn't want to just like tap every guy on the shoulder like
right.
Kadallah.
I feel that. Well, so you might have been there on, when did you go? 2 days?
What day is today? Friday. I went like 3 days ago. So it was kind of in the midst of like Chinese New Year celebrations.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous. They had like a big like light show. They had like fireworks.
Right.
It was all like decked out, spruced up. It was
Right.
really gorgeous.
Well,
A lot of people.
They have
busy, super busy.
They have so many volunteers who are part of the community. Even people who live in Taipei that come down every once in a while to come and volunteer down there.
Okay.
And I got I stayed there for like 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
Volunteering through Workaway, and I got pretty close to the monk who at the time was running the volunteer program. I've found out, like since telling you that you should go and say hi to him, that he's not in charge of the volunteer program.
Okay. I'm sure I would not have been able to pick the guy out.
Yeah.
Also, thousands of monks there.
Yeah, for sure.
What was most impressive was it was during the Chinese New Year celebrations, and there was, I mean, I guess 10 to 20,000 people. Hard to estimate, of course. It's got really spread out, but like thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem full.
Oh,
like it seemed like the facilities could have handled plenty more.
Did you go to the museum as well?
We hit all 3 levels at least a bit.
Okay.
The museum right under the big Buddha?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think the most beautiful thing for me was there's like a shrine there. It has like Buddha's tooth.
Oh yeah. The Jade Buddha.
Yeah. It's really intense. There's a sign outside. It's like, don't take pictures. Like this is a place of like worship, not for tourism. You kind of felt that. You kind of felt those vibes inside.
You're not even supposed to like speak while you're inside.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is really cool. I love that too, because like there's so many places that have just become like holy places even that have become these tourist. I don't want to say tourist traps. I feel like that's kind of
a tourist place. Yeah.
And like the fact that because like that Guogongshan, that particular Buddhist monastery gets a lot of flack for focusing on trying to propagate the Dharma to non-Buddhists, or like trying to convince non-Buddhists.
Kind of try to convert people.
Yeah.
I have never had an experience like going there before. Obviously, just because it was so big.
Right.
But also, I felt like they did do a really good job of educating you. Have everything in English. People were really like helpful. Were handing out maps and guides, and most of them would try to talk to me in English, as best they could. And it was, I felt like, geez, like Buddhism is pretty cool. It was like fun.
Yeah, for sure. So I just say that to say, I was very impressed by the fact that they have places where you're not allowed to take pictures and stuff, because that goes against a lot of the criticism that they have gotten in the past.
I see.
Yeah.
They have some sections probably cordoned off, and I imagine there's some places that are not open to the public. I imagine some kind of more private kind of meditation things.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but the facilities enormous.
Because they also have a Buddhist college there. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah.
Okay.
So with those places, there are places on the campus that you're not allowed to go to if you're not a monk.
Right. Okay.
Or like training people.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. They can kind of have both.
Yeah.
But it's intense.
Yeah.
Really intense place. I want to. There was one. So they have like huge Buddha. I don't know how tall it is. Probably 50, 60 meters tall or something.
Yeah.
Huge, enormous, and 8 pagodas representing
Yes.
like different principles of Buddhism along the way.
Yeah.
And so I was like heck yeah, like I'm gonna like learn about Buddhism. So like went into the first one and like tried to read about things and like just very quickly understood, number one, that my friend was super bored with me reading all the placards,
Yeah.
and number two, that like I was not going to be able to like understand everything they were saying. So
Yeah.
I just at least like took their, you know, like the info card, all the things. I'm gonna go like Wikipedia later,
Yeah.
you know, like really try to find out some things about Buddhism.
Yeah.
It's interesting living in like a semi-Buddhist culture in
Yeah.
Taiwan for so long, and I don't really know anything about the religion,
Right,
you know,
right.
really at all.
What
I do appreciate though, you know, I mean, like Christianity, I guess I'm kind of Christian, right? So I appreciate that, like Christianity, that there's a simple message of Buddhism, right? Something like life has suffering in it, and if you stay in the moment, then you can reduce a lot of that suffering. Something like that. But on top of that, there's like a lot of literature and like holy books and
Right.
traditions, and like you could study it very, very deeply, but like there's some simple messages you can take on just a basic level from the religion.
Definitely. So I wish I would have recommended to you beforehand. I think in like the 4th pagoda or so, they have a free book that you can take that
Oh, really?
explains their particular brand of Buddhism or their particular style of Buddhism, which is considered
Yeah.
humanistic Buddhism.
Okay.
Which just focuses on the fact that the Buddha was a living person
Yeah.
who, you know, was. I mean, it's not like explicitly said in there, but like you get away from the book, like he was an imperfect person who had some ideas that were really, really great, and
Yeah.
you should follow those particular ideas. Without emphasizing too much the like supernatural elements of Buddhism.
And so
It's like
some
any religion.
styles of Buddhism do emphasize more like he's this magical dude.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
okay.
like look at like they have their own lore and stories in the same way that Christianity has. its
Sure.
own- its
Yeah.
own stuff.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
And I really, really dig that kind of Buddhism in terms of like, I don't know if I would consider myself a Buddhist.
Mhm.
I think of myself as
Buddhist
kind of like,
curious, certainly.
Yeah. I think of
Huh.
myself in the same way, like as a Buddhist, in the same way that my dad would consider himself like a Marxist, right?
Okay.
I really love the philosophy behind Buddhism, and I
Mhm.
think that the Buddha that we think of as the Buddha, because one of the things in Buddhism is that anybody can become a Buddha, right?
Mhm.
The Buddha that we think of as the Buddha was a person who had really, really great ideas and insights about the nature of reality, but he was still a person who was imperfect and like is subject to like scrutiny.
Okay. Him as a person, his ideas, or both.
I think both.
Like you can talk about things. It's not like holy and.
Yeah, I think you should talk about
Yeah,
them in
great.
order to see what was good and what was not
Cool.
good.
So you are here in Taipei because of Workaway. You are also there because of Workaway. What is Workaway?
So Workaway is a website for finding places to volunteer in exchange for housing and food. In certain places, you can also get like paid through Workaway.
Okay.
But it's the perfect resource for anybody that's traveling outside of the U.S. I mean, they even have Workaway situations in the U.S. But it's a really great way to travel because then you don't have to worry about like eating or finding a place to stay. So it's a good way
Yeah.
to travel on a budget.
Yeah. Super cool.
I think when I first arrived, I came with like less than $500, and I was able to survive for like months.
That's how you get rich. That's how you become a billionaire. Is you come to a country with $500 in your pocket, no more, no plane ticket home.
yeah. Great. I'm gonna have amazing stories to tell my grandkids one day.
Yeah, great. Super cool.
Yeah.
Do you plan to stay in Taipei for a while? Not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard. I really love
Hard to know,
Taipei.
or-
It's hard to know.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
hard
yeah.
to know. I really love Taipei, and all things considered, I would love to stay here for the foreseeable future.
Mhm.
That said, I said the same thing when I moved to LA,
Mhm.
and then I stayed there for like 4 months.
Okay.
So one of my goals is to stay in Taiwan for a year. You know.
Okay.
Since graduating from college, I haven't stayed in a place for over like 4 months.
Okay.
So I'm trying to
Just
you
stick
know,
it out.
Yeah, stick it out. You know, learn how to put some roots in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have a mission in life. You know, I have
Mhm.
goals that I want to see through to the end.
Mhm.
And if like, in order for me to accomplish these things, I have to leave and go study somewhere else or do whatever. Like, I can't like not do that just because I have this arbitrary goal of staying here for all of 2020.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Cool. What kind of people do you think? What kind of American people do you think would like living in China or Taiwan?
Okay, that's a good.
Probably not everyone, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
some types, some people.
I think you have to be very, at least for China, I think you have to be very open to. You just have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to see that you're not always right. You have
Which,
to be
by the way, open-mindedness is like a basic personality trait. Some people are just not open-minded, and they shouldn't try to be open-minded. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not judging you if you can't hack it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot of people can't. A lot of people can't and shouldn't.
Right. Because the other thing is, like, you'll meet from one of the most frustrating things about being in China when I first arrived was the way that so many foreigners come to China and feel a sense of entitlement, or like are very critical of situations in a way that's like not constructive. You know what I mean? People who just kind of like shit on the experience and like want to ruin your experience because they're not having a good time.
Yeah.
Often it just boils down to like, okay, you're not comfortable in the situation.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the society is inherently flawed because of like the things that take issue with. You know?
Yeah.
So I think being open-minded in a way where like you can separate like what is discomfortable, like, or what's uncomfortable, and what
for
is,
you,
like,
and
what is like objectively like, okay, this is a situation that isn't good in China.
Yeah. I feel that. Did you see people in China that like just they didn't cut it, like they had to?
Yeah, for sure.
They had to leave after a couple months or something. It was just too much for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I also think I loved my school and I loved the people that I went to school with. But when you are required to stay in a place because you're like studying for a degree and stuff, you have like an extra motivation for staying in a place that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise stay in.
I see.
There's definitely people that I went to school with who, like, you know, I wouldn't necessarily recommend staying in China for 4 years, but you feel like you have to because you're studying.
Yeah, to like finish your degree, like get the paper all good.
Yeah. And that can breed resentment and like can oftentimes close you off more.
Yeah, and you probably will see more of that too as a student because you have to. They're your classmates. You kind of have to hang out with them.
Yeah.
You can't like just choose different classmates to have.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And because we are such a politically open school, you know, I think there was a tendency at times too for like, so one of the things, like, how do I put this? In order for my school to operate, we have to agree to a certain base level of like freedom of information and such. So every year, at least while I was there,
you mean
were like
NYU in Shanghai?
Yeah.
Or the
NYU in Shanghai. Okay. So every year, at least while I was there, there would be like senators and like senators' aides and stuff who would come to our school and interview select groups of people to find out like if we were actually had like freedom of information, like our classes were being censored and stuff.
Okay.
But the strange thing for me was always that, like, I look at the curriculum that I had and I look at the like classes that are required for everybody to take, and they 9 times out of 10 would have a Western bias. You know what I mean? Like, we'd have classes where you have a lot of philosophers that you look at their texts and stuff, and most of the time it felt as if the Chinese authors that they would offer up were like straw men, and then you would use the Western intellectuals to like break down their arguments and show why they were flawed.
Okay. So you mean you felt like there wasn't freedom of information, but not because of like communist ideas, but because of like it was too kind of biased towards American thoughts, American ideas?
Yeah, I would definitely say it was biased towards like Western thought. I wouldn't say that we were like, we didn't have freedom of information. I would still say we're totally free in that respect. But it was like, there was definitely a bias in the way that we were being educated, and it wasn't towards like China at all.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's, I guess what you'd expect from, especially, but you weren't studying politics. You're studying media communications.
Yeah, but I mean, there are certain. I went to like a new.
Do you think it's because of your professors, like their points of view?
No. So the classes that I'm talking about, like the classes that I took for my major, felt a lot more balanced.
Okay.
What I'm talking about are those like required classes, the core curriculum that everybody has to take.
Okay.
You know, my class was like 300 people in it. There was certain classes that all of us took together in one lecture hall at the same time.
And they have like a set curriculum, and like everyone's learning about.
Yeah, because what
kind of classes? I'm just trying to.
The main class I'm thinking of is one called Global Perspectives on Society.
That sounds like pretty easy to be biased. Global Perspectives on Society.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. And I mean, I loved that class. You know, it was really cool, and it was also really cool to like, you know, very early on recognize that this is what's going on. You know, and then kind of like try to push back against that.
Yeah. Cool. You raised your hand a lot, like. Excuse me.
No, so that class
is America really number one?
But that class was cool because it was split up into like lecture, which had like all 300 of us in one lecture hall.
Yeah.
And then you had like the writing classes where you would write essays about the stuff that you're talking about, and then you had like a recitation where you would just like talk about the things that were going on in the lecture.
Yeah, that sounds like it has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Sounds like it could be cool.
It was definitely, yeah. Especially the school is also 25% Shanghainese, 25% rest of China, 25% American, 25% rest of the world.
Okay.
So, super diverse classmates, classes in general. Yeah.
Quarter. Was that intentional?
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.
I think
cool.
it's a similar setup with NYU Abu Dhabi. I think it's like 33% Emirati, 33%. Is that the? Yeah. 33%
Something like that.
American.
Yeah. That they intentionally try to make it really diverse. So especially
Yeah.
for a class like that, I think has a lot of potential to be really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, they set it up to be really cool.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So Taiwan for 1 year maybe. Where else in the world do you fantasize about living or going or traveling?
Yeah. So I definitely want to
Jamaica, definitely.
Yeah.
On the list.
Jamaica, at least to travel to.
Okay.
Liberia, I definitely want to live in for a little bit. But I'm also right now.
What language do you speak in Liberia?
English.
Okay.
Yeah. We also have 16 like local indigenous tribes.
Okay.
And they have their own languages.
But national language English.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're in an interesting situation right now because we had like 2 civil wars back to back, and the infrastructure is pretty much completely collapsed. So public schools are, I think, all but non-existent at this point.
Okay.
So language, it's really interesting to see how language shifts through something like that as well. So right now, English is still the official language, and people speak English on the street, but the English that's spoken by people like in everyday life is kind of transformed. I don't know if
Liberian English?
Yeah, but so like in Liberian English, you would call it like colloquia.
Okay.
And I think there are certain terms and certain phrases and stuff that are not explicitly English. So I don't know if like
they could get borrowed from other places or kind of transformed through use, have like some local slang develop, things like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And similar to the conversation earlier about like dialects and stuff in China, I don't know if we would necessarily be able to understand if we went back.
Okay.
Like had a conversation with someone speaking colloquia.
I see.
Yeah. Colloquia, short for colloquial English.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I am very, very interested in the relationship between political theory and technology and the way that societies can be transformed through technology. So I'm looking at studying in Germany and doing like some fellowships and stuff.
Do you have to learn German first?
Well, there's a particular fellowship that I'm looking at right now that like part of the fellowship is they do an intensive German program before you start your like actual fellowship.
Study German for 10 years and then start. I've always thought it's cool that they offer school like to international people for free, but like mostly it's in German.
Yeah.
Like that's what most of the school is in, so it's a big barrier for most people, I think.
Yeah, but I mean for me, I feel uncomfortable living in a place for a prolonged period of time without being able to speak the language of the place.
Yeah. It usually makes sense.
Yeah.
When if people ever compliment my Chinese for any reason, I just say like, listen, if you move to Russia for 6 years, you should probably speak a little bit of Russian after that.
Like, I don't know. I like being able to interact with people.
Yeah. It's really rewarding, and it makes me feel really guilty that my Chinese is not better.
But it's motivating.
Also, yeah. Like I think it'd be really cool, for example, to do these kind of interviews like with, like in Chinese, with local people, but. My Chinese is just so basic that I can only ask like stupid, what kind of food do you like to eat? Like if I were really gonna have a topic, a conversation about it, because if I ask like, how do you like living in Taiwan? What's the differences between China and Taiwan? Like I'm not gonna be able to engage in that conversation, make that interesting for anyone.
Right.
Or be able to translate and give subtitles.
Yeah. Well, maybe a challenge for you later. 我们可以开始现在。
好。我之前跟一个台湾人一起讲，就是做这个播客的话
，OK，
用中文一下，但是他是算是就是美国的台湾人那样子，然后他听不懂我的中文，他觉得我翻译有一点奇怪哦，所以我现在有一点尴尬讲中文。
OK， 所以在台湾他们有那个 ABT 的事情吗？
ABT 什么意思？
就是
ABC。
对，
哦，ABT 知道
他们用吗？
好，我没有听说，但是台湾和美国有很强的联系，是吗？联络。American Taiwan has a strong connection.
哦，OK，有关系，
有关系，对对对，没错。所以这边有超多国际的台湾人。
对对对，
就是你知道我的工作就是教政治，在我们的学生大多数是美国学校来的，或者欧洲学校来的，或者其他的外国的学校来的这样子。
OK，
大多数都有什么外国的护照。就是如果你要进去那个学校，你需要一个，对对，美国的或者其他的国家的。
对
，OK。台湾也是比较小的一个国家，是吗？所以
对，
很多人喜欢旅行或者去别的地方看看，因为这边就是太小了。
对我来台湾以来，很多老人会说：“哦，你为什么来台湾？每个台湾人也要去美国。
是的，
你为什么从美国来了？”所以常常我不知道我应该说什么，就是
我觉得台湾比美国有很多比较好的部分，就是你知道，就是美国我们那边有很多就是枪的问题，就是 gun violence 或者我们的Taiwan's health system is way better, way cheaper.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a huge laundry list of reasons why
Yeah.
like Taiwan why you might like it better than America.
Right.
Like for me the major thing is just cost.
Yeah.
It's just cost of living your life.
I also feel like I don't. It's hard to say if this is something that I felt for a long period of time, or if this was influenced by our memories are constantly being overridden.
True.
And
Yeah.
recently
Yeah.
had a huge political division within our country, but
Yeah.
it feels very divided in the U.S. right now. And I think that's a big part of coming out here is just like I feel a lot happier because I'm not constantly inundated with information about the ways in which our country is falling apart.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
I don't know.
People get really into it. So I think this coronavirus is a really good case in point of how much people pay attention to news or media in different places and how it can affect your mental.
Yeah.
I don't want to say mental health, just your mental clarity, right? Because you only have so much kind of headspace to deal with in your life, right? You can't focus on everything.
Yeah.
And maybe you're trying to focus on some positive things like your mood or your health, or you're trying to hustle, do some work or something.
Yeah.
And if you have that brain space filled up by coronavirus, you don't have as much just RAM to focus on other things in your life that are positive,
Right.
And it does seem I've had zero I live in Taiwan, by the way, right? And I've had zero Taiwan people ask me about coronavirus, except to make a joke. And I've had 5 American people message me on Facebook, are you okay? How you doing? What's happening?
Right.
And I just tell them, it's fine. Stop. Turn off the TV, please.
Yeah. I definitely vibe with that.
Yeah. But it goes with many other things too, and it's sort of so. Let's say I was living in the States, I don't know how much I would really care about day-to-day international politics.
Right.
I pretty much don't, except I have to for my job.
Okay.
Right? But if everyone is talking about, the North Korean nuclear crisis, that's all anyone ever wants to talk about every time you see someone, it's inevitable. You have to deal with it. This information pollution that people have.
Right.
It's contagious,
And it's also that kind of engagement with an issue isn't real engagement with it. You know what I mean?
Not at all.
It's a pop international relations.
And not even that. I always liken it to sports.
Yeah.
I think it's who's
a spectacle.
Who's winning, who's losing, what kind of info do you have about the players on the field and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's it matters from in my point of view. In my point of view, it matters if once we're finished having this conversation about it.
Yeah.
Now maybe the world is different, or we can go do something about it to make it different, which is important if you're like a politician.
Right.
You know, maybe I want to change your mind about something. That makes sense. Or
Yeah.
if it's your job, you work in the industry. You know, but for us, like literally, it doesn't fucking matter what you think, man. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. I get that.
And again, I mean, it doesn't mean it's bad
Yeah.
to talk about politics. If it's as long as it's fun and positive.
It's not bad as long as it's not bad. But
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of the
yeah.
times, it's just like feeding this like depression and anxiety that we
Yes.
have about things that we
Yes.
can't control.
Yeah. Because I mean, like sports. I mean, I think sports is a good thing to liken it to. Like, if a lot of people really love sports and they really love
Right.
talking about sports and they really get happy when they talk about sports,
Right.
right? And they love it, right?
Yeah.
And that, it's a nice thing to do in that case.
Yeah.
But you're right. For politics, it seems like mostly it's like kind of negative emotions.
Right.
Yeah, like anxiety, fear.
Right. And I mean, like, we have hold somewhat different political views, right? I don't
Yeah.
think that we would be as close friends right now if we were living in like at least the DC area. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like in that way we're very divided, and it's very hard to connect with people. I think I think that's one of the cool things about being abroad in general, but also in Taipei specifically. What I was talking about with like the organic ways of finding friends and stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
We became friends before we ever talked about anything political, and at that
Yeah.
point it was too late. Oops. Yeah. So
Yeah, I feel that same way about several friends I have. That like if you were to like describe them like on a piece of paper and say like they're like this and this and this, I'd be like, I don't want to hang out with them. But they're just like my best friends, you know?
Yeah.
Like which is it's cool. It's cool.
yeah.
In America, I'm not sure how it would be different, but for sure people love to talk about politics.
Yeah.
For sure people love that.
Yeah, I don't know. Right now, that's like one of the things that I'm trying to go back to school to study right now is the intersection of politics and technology. But the thing that ultimately inspired me to like get back into going to school or like studying this particular project is a book that I read that talks about the need to become more positive about the way that we engage in politics. And like, you know, for so long it's felt like this like thing weighing on my back that's like, oh, like I have to think about politics, this is so depressing, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
yeah,
And it
yeah.
like completely, reading this one book just like completely shifted my perspective. It's like, okay, like how can I actually use this to create positive change rather than just like stewing in depression?
Yeah. And it's like if you are depressed or anxious, like maybe that's not because of politics, but it can definitely be something that something that you can kind of like cling on to as like the, you know, the kind of like seed of your depression or anxiety, something for like your brain to like kind of spin around in, you know.
Did you see that episode of South Park where like Tweek is like super depressed about the North Korean nuclear crisis?
Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try to throw a clip in here.
Yeah.
Of
Nice.
Tweek in North Korea.
Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts for our 12 viewers?
Nice. Happy New Year, guys.
Yeah, Shin Kadallah. By the way, did you do anything for New Year's?
No, not
Okay.
this year. Yeah.
Cool.
It was actually kind of strange. Like, I was here for the holidays, like Christmas and Thanksgiving, and you know, I miss my family for sure.
Yeah.
But with New Year's, I felt like a weird like sense of nostalgia and like homesickness for Shanghai for sure. Because like for the last few years, I had been having like Nian Fan with one of my roommates from freshman year, and like definitely miss Shanghai in those moments. So it's like a weird feeling for sure.
Yeah. I feel like you know like the traditional like old person question is people ask you like about your girlfriend and if you're gonna get married and if you're gonna have kids, and people make fun of old people for like, you know, not even our parents, like maybe like their parents like talking about it. I feel like the new like guilty question is like so what do you do for the holidays? You didn't travel. What's wrong?
Right.
Why wouldn't you go anywhere?
Yeah,
So I feel like kind of like some travel guilt. Like, oh man, I should have went somewhere.
Yeah.
Even if you don't enjoy it, there's no reason to. You love staying here.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't mean to make you feel guilty.
Did you? Oh yeah, you were
okay.
traveling.
Yeah. I went hiking.
Nice.
Yeah, it was crazy. We got.
Are those Palladians?
Dude, nice. How do you know that?
Oof, I love Palladians. Sorry.
Super nice.
My favorite pair of shoes
Super
I've
good
ever owned.
eyes, man. Yeah.
I've noticed them before.
Okay.
And I didn't say anything, and I regretted it. So I had to say something now.
Yeah. It was it's crazy. It was like raining the whole time. It was just absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
It was the coldest, wettest, longest, most miserable hike I've ever done.
Nice.
But that's why you do it. You know, that's the reason. There were no bugs, sadly. and unfortunately, we also didn't get lost. That would the only two things that could have made it better.
No bear attacks.
No bear attacks. That's what I was really hoping for. But we did see these owls. We saw these two owls. They're like this big, super cute, and not shy at all. Like you get really close to them. It was really, really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So cool hike. All right. What should we do for our outro?
Do you have like a song that you sing?
No.
你是我的小呀小苹果。
这么爱你都不嫌多。
I only know the chorus or the first line of the hook.
Bye bye.
再见。
How do you say?
Oh, 吉祥.
Jishan.
Did you notice that at Wolverhampton?
No, I was looking out for it actually.
Word.
I didn't